So we're going to do our first game, and I've given you a bit of a starter. You could have built this starter, but I kind of wanted to get your feet wet a little faster. Eventually, you're going to learn how to make these starters yourself, but I did give you a starter for this game. And what you've got in your starter is you've got a backdrop that is a maze, and we're going to make a maze that has the kitty going to catch the mouse through the maze. It's fairly straightforward, right? The cool part of this is you're going to use a couple of some old familiar code, if then Boolean statements, and then we're going to add this thing called a sensor over here. We're going to use sensors today, so we're going to do all of that. Now, let's figure out what we're going to do to move it. We're also going to use an event handler we've not used much before. Some of you figured it out, but I'm actually going to make formal use of it, and it's called when pressed. When right now it's preset for when spacebar is pressed. That's going to be one of our happier movements, right? Now, this kitty you'll notice is set for size 20 and it's facing direction 90. The mouse you'll see is facing direction 90. It's a normal facing. It's size 25 because the kitty would have been huge if I had left it at 100%. Um, that's just too gigantic for the game. So I set it for 22, so you have it to start with. And what we want is we want when I move my down arrow, I'm going to pick my down arrow. I want my down arrow to move this way. So let's look at motion. Do I have a move down? I don't. But you know what I do have? I have change by X and change by Y. Oops, sorry. I've changed by X and change by Y. What the heck is that about? Well, remember coordinate planes when you did math class, right? Coordinate planes, you do some kind of algebra and you graph some things out on a coordinate plane. So you'd have an X or a Y line that went right through the middle, and everything above it was positive Y, and this was Y0, and everything below it was negative Y. All right. If you had a coordinate planes that were X, you had an X line down the center, and everything over here was positive X, and everything over here was negative X. Well, you probably remember that this X and Y coordinate, this is how this works. Let's look over at the mouse. The mouse is all the way over on the right, and look, we got a nice high Y number. And it's all the way down or a nice high X number. I apologize, I misspoke. And then it's all the way down at the bottom, well below the zero line. So it's a big negative Y number, right? Let's go over at the kitty negative 159x. Why? Because it's all the way over here. We have a 163y because it's way up near the top. And that's how it's coordinating, right? So the theory is if I use my y, I'll be able to use my y to move my kitty. So I'm going to do that, but I don't want to necessarily look, even as I'm moving this, oh my goodness, I'm setting it up to the top. That's not making any sense. Let me reset it by setting my green flag. That's why I gave you this code right here. Every time you hit the green flag, it's going to put it right back here. Gives you a chance to experiment with it. So if you move it over here and you turn it in some goofy, crazy direction and everything goes haywire and you got everything wild, just hit the green flag. I've got it resetting for you, okay? So if I click down arrow, well, it's going up. Well, that's stupid. I don't want to have it go up when I want it to go down. So I'm going to change this to negative, and I'm going to change it to -4. I learned that -4 allows it to go down. Well, that's kind of cool. So now I've got it moving just by holding my mouse button down. Except that, well, there's a couple of problems there, isn't there? First, it's going right through the black, and that's really no fun if there's no obstacles. Games have to have obstacles, right? And the maze obstacle are the walls of the maze. You want it to behave the right way. So I'm going to go back to green flag. I'll reset it. And the first thing I'm going to tell it to do is I'm going to tell it, look for the black. Well, black, I'm going to use our old friend if then, the Boolean statement, right? And I'm going to have the Boolean statement use a sensor. Remember the sensor thing that we found? Well, a sensor has a bunch of cool ideas. If color is touching blah, 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 if things are touching different other things, that's cool. But what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you do touching, not mouse pointer, I'm sorry, touching color. And I'm going to throw it in here. So I've got touching color. It's touching color. And it's looking, every time I hit the down arrow, it's looking for this green. Well, that doesn't make any sense. There's none of that green in here. We want it looking for this particular black, this shade of black that's in the maze. How am I getting this exact shade of black? Well, we're going to use something called the eyedropper. So we're going to click on this bad boy right here. And you see right here where it says this little clicker? We're going to click on that. We're going to hover over it like this. And if you see, the circle actually tells me what color I'm sampling. Once I'm over it, I click it. I'm clicking it right now. And as I click it, it finds that color. And what do I want it to do? I want it to bounce. Every time it hits that wall, I want it to come back. So what I'm going to put inside of this if then is the opposite of what's outside. So every time I hit the outside, the down arrow, I'm going -4 on the X, right? So here I want a +4. So I'm going to go to change Y, and I'm going to change my number to 4, and I'm going to stick it in here. I'm going to use the down arrow. Let's see how it works. Okay, now we're getting a little bit of motion. Oh, and it's stopping. Excellent. Let's reset that. Now, two other things I'm not crazy about. One, he's facing in a direction that is completely unnatural and unrealistic movement. It kind of, you wouldn't design a game that looked that bad, right? So I'm going to have it turn, and I'm going to have it point in a direction. So I'm not going to use the turn, because the turn, you could do that, but it's a little harder to work with. Instead, I'm going to use point and direction. So I'm going to use point and direction, and I'm going to stick the point and direction up here. So when I hit the down arrow, I'm actually going to have it face this direction. I wonder what direction that is. Well, if I have it turn like this, right at 180, says if I have it going down this way, 180 is my direction. So I'm going here and I'm going to have it face 180. So now, set the green flag, puts it back. If I press down, that's better. That's better. Still do better. Next thing I'm going to tell you to do, hopefully you've been catching up, is you are going to have it pretend to move. Let's look at the kitty's costumes for a second. So we're in kitty, going over to costumes. Kitty has two costumes. Is this, has this, and this. So I'm going to use an old motion trick called next costume. I'm going to throw it right in here. Now what happens is I'm going to hit the down arrow. Look what happens. Each time I hit the down arrow, Kitty appears to be moving. And then when Kitty hits a wall, Kitty bangs into the wall, quite literally. If you wanted to have fun, you could even have a little sound effect every time it touched, you could have it go toot, 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 or something like that every time it hit a wall. Let's reset that. And again, I hit the down arrow, it turns and it starts to step. And it's all of that, yeah, it starts to step. In case you're completely lost, I'm going to do one more of these. I'm going to do the X. Now, X is going to, or I'm going to do the right arrow. The right arrow is going to use the X. The X is going to be what we use for the right arrow. So I'm going to grab myself another event handler, and it's when pressed, and I'm going to say right arrow. And this is kind of a cool thing. On the right arrow, I'm going to click change by, right? But am I going to pick change by Y? Nope, I'm going to pick change by X. And we've agreed that our steps are going to be 4, right? So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to give it a 4. So there we go. I'm going to throw that in there. Now, if I hit the right arrow, it moves. We know it moves. Still looks kind of, nah, but it moves. It does move through the screen. So let's reset this bad boy. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to point. Well, I don't have to tell it to point in that direction, except watch what happens. Now I'm going down, right? If I go to the right, it's still pointing that way. So I'm going to put in a point to direction. We're going to give it point and direction, and that happens to be 90. So let's reset it. I can go down, and if I hit the right arrow, I'm going this way. And we've got to do our next costume trick, right? Our next costume is right here. Grab my next costume, stick it in here. And of course, he's still running into the walls. So we have to put in the if then that stops him from running into walls. Let's see how we do. So I'll go down a little bit, go to the right, and of course it went, because what did I not do? Why did I have that mistake? Oh, looky down here, right arrow. Change X by 4, change Y by, haha, -4. You see? That's why you test every time. So I'll go down a little bit. I'll go down this dead end. And up, change Y by -4. No, Mr. Tush, you're not going to change Y by -4. You're going to change X by -4. See? So that's how we do this. Let's reset it. Let's check it now. down, right. I pulled a change Y in. My bad. Change X by. Let's put that bad boy in there. -4. Reset. Down. Now I can't go back. Why can't I go back? Because to go back, I need the left arrow. You're going to have to program the left arrow. You're going to have to program the up arrow. So I've got down and right. You have to program left and up. You're also going to have it check every single time whether or what to do when it hits the kitty. And you're going to have a you win screen. You can switch the backdrop to you win. You can switch, you can have a sprite pop up that shows you win, but all by yourself. You have to have a win message. I will tell you, you're going to use an if then. And if you can also have it say if touching, and you'll see if it's touching, mouse one is an option for you. So one of the sensors can be if it's touching another sprite. So you can have an if then that says if it's touching the other sprite, mouse one, then it'll do stuff. You also have if it's touching the edge, so you can have it never go off the screen. So you're going to use this if touching another sprite to figure out how to do a you win. I'm not going to give you that. So you have to figure out the rest of this. So assuming you've done all of this coding, finish your maze. For bonus, you can put in additional mazes. For bonus points, you can be more creative about your sprites. For bonus points, you can use different sounds. This is a fun coding project. It's your first actual playable game, the kind you can show your friends. So, and I encourage you to do so. Have some fun with this and enjoy.